Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I am Midge Noble, your host, and I hope you're having a good day whenever you're listening to this podcast. And as always, I hope that you're going to subscribe and share and really be a part of the Gay with God community. One way you can do that is to join us on Facebook. We have a group called Gay with God on Facebook, and every month we join together for a little Zoom meeting that we call My Faith Journey. And it's a time to get together with one another, to talk about the struggles, to talk about the successes, and to talk about just the journey that we're having as gay Christians and how we're navigating the world. So if you want to go to Facebook and look for the Gay with God Facebook page, make sure that you answer all the questions and I will be able to invite you inside. And the reason I say all the questions is because we're in a world where there's lots of bots and lots of trolls, and we want to make sure that every person that joins that group will be respected and be safe in the group. So I just take a little extra care with that. So today I'm talking about what seeds are we planting. I went to a great Bible study yesterday evening, and we were talking about the tree of life. Now, if you look up the Bible Project podcast, they are an amazing duo that puts on a podcast, and they're always talking about different topics. And they did a whole segment, a whole series on the tree of life. And we did a little snippet of that. And there were some amazing things that we found out. And one of the things we found out through this study was that the tree of life was something, of course, that you may or may not know was in the Garden of Eden, and that the humans were told that you could eat from the tree of life, which would continue to sustain you, and you would basically be, alive forever. But the one tree that you weren't supposed to eat was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that was by design to keep them in that place of grace and in that place of being able to live in the garden forever. And of course, you know how the story goes. They don't do it. They don't do it. And so they were exiled from the Garden of Eden. Now, the interesting thing about the tree of life is that it didn't stop there. Over time and over time, we were given the opportunity as humans to be in communion with God, live with God, make sure that we're doing what God is asking us to do so that we can live forever and have a wonderful life. But as humans do, and as we are created to do, we question, we go astray, we miss the mark. And when that happens, God would have every right, I guess, to just annihilate us and say, I'm done with humans. Let me try some other kind of thing. Let's just be done. However, that's not the way this worked. Time after time after time, once the garden was, emptied by the people who missed the mark, they were given choices and chances to follow and be in communion with God and to be kept safe and to have a good life. And every single time they would worship idols, they would turn away, they would grumble, they would do their own thing. Now, when I think about what would I have done if I had been in the garden and I was told, don't eat from this tree, but eat from this tree and you will live forever in this garden, I'm a rule follower by nature, and I would probably have stayed the course. However, I also have a craving for sweet things, and sometimes my humanness gets the best of me, and I will take something sweet over something healthy pretty much 99.9999% of the time. So when they decided to eat from this other tree, could they have had boredom in the Garden of Eden? Were they bored? Were they having some sort of a weak moment? Can you be weak in the garden and you haven't experienced any other kind of life other than just moving about the garden and planting and doing fun things? I mean, what I don't know what they would have done in the garden. I don't know actually how long they stayed there. Um, but routine can get boring. And so maybe even though they were created and the breath of life was born in them, they were human. Um, I would suspect, although I wasn't there. So, for whatever reason, we can make up all sorts of great stories about it, but for whatever reason, whatever test they were given, whatever urge they had, whether it was from their own mind or if there really was some presence there that was creating all the chaos, they made the wrong choice. They missed the mark, and they went ahead and ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then they got kicked out of the garden. And then every generation after that, they were always trying to be in communion with God and couldn't quite get to that presence again. And by this time, humanness has taken over for sure. There was meanness, there was doubt, there's fear, there's now this knowledge of, I want something, and if you have it, I need to have it. I want more than you. Lots of grumbling, lots of doubt, lots of discontent. And God still was not done with us. And I say us because even though I wasn't there, if I had been there, I probably would have grumbled about something. And I probably would have had some sort of moment where I would do something that I shouldn't have done. So I'm going to lump myself in with all the other people who have missed the mark because I certainly have missed the mark on more than one occasion. And yes, I've doubted. And yes, I've struggled. And yes, I've had deep, dark nights of the soul. And so I understand the humanness of myself and I understand the humanness in others, which leads me to talk about how we can change the seeds that we're planting, even though we can't take all that back. And yes, we're all going to die, and we are not in the Garden of Gethsemane, and we certainly are not in a great place right now in the United States of America. We still are tasked with planting seeds. And the reason is because if you look back through the whole Bible, trees, plants, fruits, all of that has been a staple throughout the stories of the Bible. Jesus often referred to himself as the vine and that we are the branches. The reason that is because when we continued to fail and God was trying to make a decision as to whether or not to continue with us or maybe move on to another star somewhere where people are not struggling as much as us and that maybe they want to be in communion with God. But the reason that he refers to himself as that is because once God realized that we could not get it together and we were never going to be and do what God was asking us to be and do, he sends Jesus. Now, because trees were very important, he always used them in the parables. Hundreds and hundreds of times trees are somehow highlighted. The burning bush, the tree of life, the tree of knowledge of good and bad. All of those things have a theme to it. And the theme is that it's all rooted together. Today, we've learned that trees in our communities are rooted together. Their roots like run into each other and around each other, and they communicate. So if you have a sick tree, the other trees know it. If a tree gets cut down, the other trees know it. That they have, if one tree is starting to die, the others can send water to that tree. So it's a communication on a level that we can't even understand how this all works, but that's how it works in the Bible, that Jesus is the root of keeping all of us connected since the Garden of Eden, because even before he was here, that was put into place, that as God designed the world, trees and plants and fruits were created before human. And it was created before human because when human received the breath of life breathed into them, they had something to eat when they were fully formed. So the nourishment from the trees, the fruit, the vines, all of that has a connection to how we grow, how we move forward, and how we communicate with each other. Jesus was sent to earth so that he would then continue the theme of the tree and the roots and the branches. When Jesus died on that cross, that was part of the wood. That was a tree that was made into a cross. And when he died, he became the seed that restarted everything. When he rose again, and he had referred to himself as the tree of life, and that I am the roots and you are my branches. Now, how do we become the branches on Jesus' tree of life, who Jesus now proclaims that Jesus is? We become the branches by what seeds we plant. So, even though we are going to have an end to our life, while we're here, the seeds we plant, what we do, and when I say what we do, I'm talking about our actions. Not that our actions save us, but our actions are connected to how we walk through this earth. And I was taken to task in the formation class on Sunday morning where we talked about trying to make it through these times and how we're going to do it and how do we keep our soul and our spirit intact when we're under attack all the time and when we're fearful and unsure of what's going to happen. And someone said that there's this idea of you can be in something and not become it. So even though we're in this mess and we're in this chaos and we're in this deplorable anger and separation, we're in it. But do we become it? Do we become the anger, the chaos, do we join it? Do we actually join it and become what it is we're trying to push back against? You know that I have from time to time, absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of us haven't felt like we were losing our faith and losing our souls to this horrible time we're living in. However, if we are gay with the God of our understanding, if we are in this chaos, how do we plant the seeds of love and strength and resilience? And how do we plant the seeds of compassion in the face of our enemy, in the face of many enemies, in the face of death? How do we do that? And it's how we choose to plant our seeds. Are we planting seeds to fight back in anger, or do we plant seeds of resistance in love? Now, how do you resist and still be loving? It's all about choosing the right frame of mind and the right intention. If my intention is to just be mean to the person who's sitting in the Oval Office and to degrade them and to spew hate, I am now a part of it because that's what he does. So if I can resist with logic, if I can resist with speaking up and out and speaking truth in power, but also with compassion, that's how we plant the seeds that will then become part of the tree of life. Every time we walk in love and compassion and we walk with intention, we are walking as Jesus walked. We'll still miss the mark. We'll still have moments of despair, and I'm pretty sure that Midge, the Aries, is going to fire up from time to time. And yet, we do have grace. And it doesn't excuse anything, but it gives us that second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th chance to get it right again, because God has not abandoned us. God continues to celebrate our successes, and God continues to stand beside us, probably weeping, as we're not doing what we're asked to do. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for someone who doesn't want to put in the work. This is something that we've always been called to do, and many people just take the quick way out. Well, I don't want to believe in something I can't see. I'll just make this idol over here and I'll worship that. Or I don't want to do something that's hard, or I'm afraid of dying and being hurt. Well, yeah, we kind of all are. And I even mentioned in the formation class yesterday morning that I don't know if I'm brave enough to have walked across that bridge in Selma and not put up a fight. I don't know if I don't think I have that in me. But we're not all called to be marchers against the Selma Bridge. We're all called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We're all called to be the roots to his branches. And when we are grounded in that love of life and in that love of God, we will receive the determination that we need. We have it in us already. And we don't have to all express it the same way. There are people who are writing songs about injustice. There are people who are marching. There are people who are donating money. There are people who are praying for those who are doing all of those things. You know, we've talked about this before, but we have to keep remembering. We have to keep remembering that we all have a piece of this journey. And what will our piece be? Will our piece be becoming part of the problem of separation and pushback and rage and being deplorable? Or will we be part of the resistance that is fair and equitable and equal and loving in the best way that we can? The tree of life becomes this beacon of hope for me, that even in death, everything's not gone. Even in despair, there's always a light that comes after. You know, all the dark times are always followed by something better. And even if this regime crumbles, which many of my very sacred, smart friends, way better than me at this point, but they all talk about that this is not sustainable. This regime is not sustainable. We don't have a length of time, but we all know that evil will not last forever. It can't. It's just not possible, because Jesus is the tree of life, and he sends out his energy to us, and we can plant those seeds of the fruit of the Spirit. If you're back in the Bible days and you know the fruit of the Spirit, joy, love, peace, that is who we connect ourselves to. That is what we're going to do. We are going to walk this journey in loving resistance. Find your way to the absolute best part of you, which is deeply rooted in God's love, and generate that from your soul. And whatever you come up against, if it's about, saying something ugly, if it's about demeaning, if it's about trying to take power and control, resist that. And then choose to find another way to get your point across. It might be reposting an article that was done really well, that wasn't mean, but that was pointed to the things that are going wrong in this administration and with this person leading it. It's okay to call out things, but make sure that you're doing it in a way that you don't become it. And, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. My first impulse is to demean and lower that person off that pedestal they've put themselves on. And that's not my job. My job is not to crawl up on that pedestal because now I'm part of it and I'm in it and I've become it. And even if I knock him off, now I'm standing there. And that's not a good look because now I've become what I hated so much. So, what seeds are we planting? Are we planting strong, durable seeds that are going to grow and become stronger and become part of the branches of Jesus' tree of life? We can do this. And it takes a lot of time to rework the impulse to just be mean back. And that's when we know that we've joined the other side. Thank you, everybody, for honoring me with your presence, for subscribing, supporting, and sharing this podcast. And to see more information about me, you can go to the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. If you are struggling with either your coming out or faith journey, please feel free to schedule a confidential and absolutely free session with me, and you can find the link to that on the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. If you're interested in receiving coaching from me on a consistent basis, use the same link to schedule your complimentary free session with me, and then we'll move forward from there. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to honoring your journey. Also, I will post a link to the Bible Project Tree of Life episode so that you can watch the video and learn more about that. Remember also, as I said in the beginning of the show, to check our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do the monthly group entitled My Faith Journey. And there's always a link available on that page if you want to join that group. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, are not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you, even when you didn't know it. You have always been Gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.